So this is our first live Q&A. We're going to be doing these monthly, myself, Oliver, there'll be a mixture of us, and Paul and Sophie as well doing them. We'll do sort of specific ones each month, but today we're focusing on the job search and how to navigate that really. It's a really difficult time at the moment. There's lots of stuff up in the air with the job market, so people are finding it quite difficult to find roles again at the moment, aren't they? So I'm Sam, for those of you that don't know me. I've worked in recruitment for over 13 years, I think, through various industries, but specifying mainly in marketing and recruitment at the moment. And I'll let Oliver introduce himself.
Yeah, no, and for those that don't know me, I'm Oliver. I've been in recruitment for about 8 or 9 years, specialising in financial services recruitment. So that covers mortgages, wealth management, and accountancy.
Cool. So we've been advertising this for a couple of weeks and been asking people for questions. We've picked out a handful just to go through. But if there's anything that you'd like to ask as you're going along, feel free to do so, and we'll try and make the time to fit that in. We're hoping to be done by one of the latest, so you can all go and get your lunches. But the first question that we have is, how do I make myself more visible to recruiters? And I'll let you.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I mean, there's a few main points here. I had the conversation recently with a few candidates as well that were struggling. I think one of the major key things is the job boards. You know, we all know that the job boards are so key from a recruiter's point of view, and also from a candidate, and also from a client point of view. So in terms of a candidate, you know, make sure your up-to-date CV's on there. You can also create a profile on most of them as well. So you've obviously got the little boxes that you can do, and that's obviously then visible to clients, to recruiters. So just make sure that those little things there are visible, they're easy to see. What's your current job title? How many years? What sort of experience? What sort of role are you looking for? All of those sort of things are necessary, because a lot of people don't know that the recruiters have the back office side of things, and there's only a certain amount that we can see, and we have a limited number of credits that we can sort of see as well. So I think those things are really, really key. Obviously, I appreciate again, I had this recently as well, is that some people don't want to make themselves visible on the job boards because they're worried that their current company might have access to that if they're a bigger sort of corporate firm as well. So I think in that sense, I fully appreciate that. I would say that the best thing to do is have a look at, do a bit of research on specialist recruiters in your particular area.
Yeah.
So for example, for me, I would expect sort of candidates within mortgages, within wealth management, to just kind of do a bit of a Google search, even a LinkedIn search at sort of specialist recruiters in that area, because they're the ones that are going to be able to put you in touch with the right people. Another thing is LinkedIn. I mean, we shout about it so much. I mean, we're actually doing this on LinkedIn as well. So, having a brand on there, connecting with the right sort of people, again, making sure that your profile is up to date, making sure you've got all of the different fields that you can use. There's lots of YouTube videos out there where you can sort of improve your LinkedIn profile as well, and build your connections, and it's kind of that sort of personal brand for you as well, which again, a lot of recruiters, when they see a CV, they will go and do a bit of a check on that candidate, and they will go and look at a LinkedIn profile. So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so on that topic, another question we had was, is LinkedIn necessary for me? So just develop that.
Yeah, I think, and again, I guess maybe I'm talking from my experience in the industries that I cover as well. So yes, I would say it's necessary from my experience. I'm sure you could probably say the same in terms of marketing as well, especially with marketing.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, most industries would want you to have LinkedIn. And again, just what I said, I'll reiterate, is just making sure that everything's up to date. I know you can attach a CV to LinkedIn, but I think it's only visible for when you're on the job side as well. But again, there's no harm in doing that. But again, just putting your key skills, your sort of experience, and building that brand, building those connections, because I appreciate it might not necessarily be, you might not get a job now straight from it, but it might be really good for you in the future in terms of your development as a candidate, having that brand and having those connections.
Yeah, I think it's great to sort of humanise you a little bit more if you're in the job search as well. We were talking this morning about how CVs can sometimes just make you look like a number, but actually you've got a little bit of don't always like the phrase personal brand, but if you've got sort of that sort of thing, it does help with both, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. So moving on to the third question then. So where is best to look for roles? And we wanted to break this down to company specific websites and industry specific job boards as well.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely legs in going directly to companies, identifying companies that you actually want to work for, particularly if they're bigger brands, because they might not necessarily use the traditional job boards to do that, because if they're big enough, people will come to them. So it's worth sort of going on their website, seeing if there's any jobs directly on there, having a look, and if there's the ability to upload your CV as well, that's also a great option. And even if they're not advertising for a role but you really want to work with them, you can find the email address of the best person to contact via LinkedIn or anything, and just sort of say you're interested. Would you mind if they popped your CV on file? And there are company specific, or not company specific, sorry, industry specific job boards out there. I'd say not so many in marketing, but there are in lots of other sort of job fields. There's lots of, particularly if you're looking for a job in care, for example, there's several sort of care job boards. I don't know if there's many in financial recruitment.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, the sort of major job boards, Reed, Indeed, Total Jobs, CV Library, always tend to be the ones that you can get. I mean, there are some sort of the qualifications that you have to do within financial services, and like your level 4 or your CMAP, for example, they do have certain websites that are more tailored to that as well. Which I haven't actually used myself, but I have heard that it's not. It's better to use the major job boards.
Yeah, I think everybody who's going to be advertised on them will almost definitely be on Indeed. And if not, definitely on LinkedIn as well. So that's another benefit to being on LinkedIn, is there's the job board function on there, isn't there? So and obviously approaching recruitment companies directly as well. A lot of recruitment companies have the ability to upload your CV directly to their website as well and create a profile with them, doesn't it? So it's worth doing that too.
And I think just to add to that as well is sort of generally you find that candidates can be proactive or reactive, and I think if you're going to get the best outcome from being proactive and going to the companies directly. If you see a company that's advertising a job on Indeed, sometimes it might just be worth sending them an email instead of applying it or applying for it through Indeed, but then just sending them a follow-up email. And again, with the recruiter, just contact them, because again, they might not be advertising every job, and a recruiter is there to help you with your career. And definitely, if they don't have a job, they've still got a lot of connections with different businesses that they can maybe introduce you to that might not be recruiting, but they may be in the future. So
exactly that. I think use as many avenues as you possibly can, especially when the market's competitive and it's difficult out there at the moment.
No, completely agree. Cool. So moving on to the next question. So what do I need to do to prepare for an interview?
So there's lots of things that would be good to do. There's obviously the basics. I mean, I say obviously, but some people who are looking for jobs might not have been into an interview for many years, or it might be your first interview. So you need to be making sure you're doing the research on the company that you're going to, looking at their website, if they've got any reviews on Google, Indeed, or anywhere really that you can find a review about them. If you sort of know of anybody who works for the company as well, it's definitely worth sort of getting some anecdotal evidence from them as well, and just finding out what's good. And if you could get a little bit of insider info about the people who are interviewing you as well, sometimes that can be helpful. Absolutely check out your journey. If you've got time, do a dry run, so you know what the traffic is going to be like at the time that you would be interviewing. So go on a weekday if it's 11 o'clock, make sure that you're doing the journey at the same time. Check out parking or bus stops or anything that's going to make your life a little bit easier. You just need to turn up as calm as possible. And I think the journey and being on time are the two sort of biggest things that would certainly stress me out if I was getting somewhere. I don't want to start off on the wrong foot. And I always say there is not too much pressure, but there is only one chance of making a first impression. So you want to be the best version of yourself, as calm as possible, and present yourself well. I think even if it's a casual dress company, people really still value people who make an effort. You know, make sure your personal hygiene is good, you're clean, and your clothes are clean, and I was going to say ironed, but I'm allergic to ironing, so but yeah, making sure you look, you know,
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
And just refresh yourself on the job description as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
if they haven't sent you a job description or you can't find the advert anymore because they've taken it down, just no harm in emailing them to say, would you mind sending it over? I think that also makes an excellent impression that you want to be prepared. So
Yeah.
if you've got any questions beforehand, don't be afraid to ask those.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely all very valid points. I think again the conversations that I have, and I'm sure we have as well with candidates, is just going that extra mile. You know, there's always the standard look at the company website and look at the job description, but it's actually the value that you get out of that and the quality of the research that you're doing. I think that's really important. And sorry, I don't know if you mentioned it, Sam, but having that series of questions.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like tailoring those questions around different parts of what the interview is going to be. So questions around the job description, questions around the company, you know, maybe even if it feels right, sort of some questions, some personal questions to the company that you're interviewing with as well, because that kind of shows that personal side to you as well. Appreciate there's going to be some questions that are answered in the interview, but you know, that's just really important, is having that, because again it shows that you've done proper research and you haven't just scrolled the company website and scrolled the job description. So I think that's all really important.
I think as well, people forget that the interview is as much for you as the interviewee as
Yeah.
it is for the interviewer. You know, you need to make sure it's the right job for you. Are they the right company for you? So make sure that you have like questions written down that are really important for you, if this sort of values based about the business, or you know, and obviously like make sure you know what the salary is and all of those really important stuff. That's what we go to work for. So you know, make sure that you're going to still be able to pay the bills. Is the commute journey realistic for you? And do sort of all of those, you know, make sure you've got all of those things in your mind as well. It's not just about being worried about what the other person thinks of you. So you know, you need to make sure it's right for both parties.
Yeah. And I think just one more thing to add on that as well, because not a lot of people think about it when they go to these interviews, but is actually knowing your CV as well. Because you know, you write the CV and you look at it a couple of times and you think, oh, I'm really happy with that, and you get it reviewed and things, but then when you actually get to the interview and they've got it in front of them but you haven't got it in front of you, you know, we do have sort of candidates that go into the interview and they don't know exactly their dates, and they don't know, you know, how long they were with a company, what sort of skills they learned from it. So again, I think that's really important, because again, what you want to do is you want to be, you know, focusing on your skills from your CV that are best suited to the job that you're going for as well. So I think that's really important.
Great.
Cool. So the last question we've got here written down is, what is the best way to present my CV?
So there's several, like there's lots that we can sort of break down for this, isn't there? And like definitely talk about in the industry specific kind of things, but some general points I would suggest would be make your CV easy to read. Don't make it too wordy. I personally recommend doing bullet points, and if you've sort of worked for a company for a long time, you've been promoted within those things, I don't see the harm in saying all of the things listed in my previous job role, but also I'm responsible for blah, 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 blah. So you're not repeating yourself too much in your CV. Make sure that you're working in reverse order. So your most recent job first, and then going backwards to when your first role was, because I think even now still sometimes people are doing it the other way around. And so I've written some notes, just sort of refreshing myself, and make sure that you have a tailored profile section at the top, and edit it for the job that you're applying for. So just sort of mentioning in there why you're applying for this job. You can sort of summarize your previous experience and how it's going to suit this new industry, specifically if you're going to be moving industries, for example. So that person who's reading your CV knows that you've taken the time to actually, you know, make it clear that this is what you're looking for, and they can understand why you think you're going to be good for the role initially before they then sort of read your full CV.
Cool. I mean, we were going to talk about the difference between marketing and finance, obviously, with that being the specialist areas, because obviously two very, very different industries. I mean, obviously, I'll go into sort of more depth about finance. So, mirroring a lot of what you just said there, obviously, it's a bit of a more sort of corporate traditional layout in terms of your CV. Clear headings, clear bullet points. Try and make it no longer than 2 pages if you can. Obviously, I know it depends on how many companies you've worked for as well, but again, making sure that your key skills are there, prominent, everything is clear, very easy to read, no real sort of pictures or icons or anything like that. One other thing, again, from a recruiter's point of view, is when people don't put their email addresses or their phone numbers on their CV. I fully appreciate that you want to, some people obviously want to be kept confidential, but that doesn't help us in terms of being able to contact you. From a recruiter's point of view, we have a duty of care to the candidates to keep everyone confidential, but we aren't able to contact them as well. I think, again, in my industry, it goes back to our previous points as well, around LinkedIn. So again, LinkedIn is your virtual CV. So people will, if they've got your CV in front of them, they'll also then refer over to your LinkedIn profile. So again, just make sure your dates all line up, the companies are on there, your key skills are on there. I just think that's really, really important.
Yeah, great.
And then obviously marketing.
Sorry,
See, but you can say, because the CVs are going to be completely different. Yeah.
In marketing would like utilize this as an opportunity to showcase their skills. So I wouldn't go too wild on the graphics and all that sort of stuff, but this is definitely an opportunity you can show your creative side. So using different colors, lots of people sort of have different columns where on one side they can share their skill set and the programs and things that they're sort of used to using, which is great. So the person reading your CV can kind of see very clearly what programs you're used to using, what skills that you've got, and then they can also simultaneously look at the actual work experience that you've had beforehand. I think that's particularly useful for people who are self-employed as well, and sort of working freelance. I think making it a little bit more bold, a little bit more out there is absolutely fine. And you like I said, you're working in the creative industry, so you need to sort of keep it up with the other CVs that people are going to be receiving, basically.
No, cool, awesome. So we've got a few questions that people have asked in the chat here as well. So should we start with the one at the bottom here from Kate? So do you want to read that and I'll answer it, or
if you click on it, it'll come up. So if a candidate's taking a career break, how do employers view this, positive or negative? I think this comes down to sort of, not very helpfully, this comes down to the personal view of the employer. I think you have employers that are still sort of very, I don't want to be sort of like pigeonhole people, but they're either sort of old school or a little bit sort of more relaxed in their thinking. Certainly, bearing in mind sort of COVID and most recently post-COVID, people are much more, or have been much more relaxed in their view on things, and understand that people need career breaks for their health, or to actually, embrace life and do all of the stuff that we actually all work for. So some people would use that as a positive, and others may not sort of think about that in the same way. But I think it's about how you frame it and explain why you took a break out, and realistically, if the employer isn't understanding about that or can understand your point of view, do you want to be working for them? Would be the thing that I would say. You probably wouldn't, because if they can't value and understand the reasons why you've taken a break in your career, then what would they be like to work alongside, and would they share your values, really? Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, just to add to that as well, I think just be as honest as possible. I think, as Sam said, there's going to be some companies that view it negatively and some that view it positively. Unfortunately, there's just nothing that you can do about that. It's obviously entirely up to them. But I think if you just put yourself in the best position by, being honest on your CV, just kind of putting a bit of an explanation, you took a career break, this was for the length of time, and a little bit of an explanation why. Again, when you speak to a recruiter on the phone, they will go through your CV and they'll probably ask the question.
Yeah.
But again, just be honest with them, just be upfront, because again, a recruiter is there to help you when putting your CV forward to a client as well. So, they're going to do their best to put you forward. And again, clients trust the recruiter that they're working with. They know that they're an industry expert. So if you're putting someone forward that has a few gaps in there, they're more, I'd probably say they are more likely to have a conversation with them because they've got the recruiter backing them as a candidate. So that's just really important as well.
I think as well, if you have taken a break, don't let it sort of get in your head, really. I would say, like, make sure you're still backing yourself. You've still got all of the skills and all of the work experience that you had prior to having a break, and don't forget that you're still going to be adding value to a business. So yeah, don't be so worried about it and think that it's going to put you on the back foot. Would be sort of my recommendation. Sort of make sure that you are clear in your skills and what you're going to bring to a company. You leave with that. That is the most important thing. The fact that you had a break isn't the most important thing. Would be what I would say. And just make sure you're up to date with any sort of legislation or anything like that. If that's appropriate for your job role, just make sure you're up to date with anything that you need to know about, because that would be probably the main concern from an employer.
It's always about turning that negative into a positive. So think about how it could be negative to an employer. Put yourself in the employer's shoes as well. How can it be negative to them? And turn that into a positive. Why should that be a positive as well? So that's really good. That's all right. So should we have a look at the one from Suzanne? Can we see all of that? Do you want to read it out?
How valuable are professional certificates and sector specialist qualifications when you're battling for roles with lots of different competition? Are they essential, or would you not even be looked at without one if there is that much competition and others have it, or can you still get through, filter without them?
Cool. I'll start on that one. So because I guess a lot of the roles that I recruit for, with it being in financial services, they're regulated roles. You have to have a qualification in order to legally give advice as a mortgage advisor or a financial advisor. I know there's obviously different roles underneath. So interesting one to answer, really. I would say obviously it depends on the role that you're going for. I mean, from my experience, a lot of companies, if they're using a recruiter, for example, they're obviously going to be paying a fee. So most of the time companies turn around and say, well, if I'm paying a fee to a recruiter, I'm going to want someone who's probably going to be able to start bringing money straight in to the business. That's not always the case, but it does happen quite a bit. So I'd rather sort of explain two different ways. But most of the sort of trainee roles, so if I take a trainee mortgage advisor, for example, if you're, there's lots of people that are going to be going for that trainee role because they want to become a mortgage advisor and maybe they've got a bit of sales experience. I would highly recommend to any candidate that I speak to is look at the CMAP qualification. Even if you started it, just got your CMAP 1, because there's 3 different modules, that still puts you in a really, really good position, because again, I've seen it from a company point of view that if you're going for a trainee role and the person you're up against has got their CMAP, they are more biased towards that person that's got their CMAP because they've got the qualification. All they need now is just the training. And obviously the qualification can take, I mean, quickly it can be done in sort of 2 or 3 months, but sometimes it can take sort of 6 to 10 months as well. So again, it's a real difference of when the company know that you're going to be able to start bringing value into them as well. So I think that's really important. But obviously there are other positions that you don't necessarily need it for. It really just depends on what the company's looking for. We also get sort of more sort of technical admin positions where, again, they require a level 4 qualification. So it really depends, but again, it just depends on the job advert. It depends on what the company's specifically looking for. Again, we've had companies that have recruited for a long time and they haven't been able to find that particular person, so then they're a little bit more open, but obviously that's a bit of a waiting game for the candidate as well. So overall, I would say that if you are really serious about that particular career or that particular job that you want to go into, you would have already started your qualifications. And again, a lot of companies look at that if you've got your qualification, then they know that you're really serious about making a career out of that particular job. So again, that just puts you in a really, really good position.
I think as well, like particularly like you said, you pointed out sort of entry level. If you're at the entry level, you do want to stand out, and I think showing a company that you've made the extra effort to do a qualification in something that's relevant is very important. But what I would also say is the qualifications don't always sort of outweigh experience. I think if you've got sort of lived in experience in a role, like Oliver said, if it's not in the job description that qualification is necessarily required, your lived in experience is just as, if not more valuable occasionally than actually doing a qualification. So I think you need to look at the role, the company, and there's no harm in also directly approaching the person who's recruiting and saying, look, this is my skill set. I don't have this qualification. Is it essential? Would you still look at my CV? So then you're not having to spend hours filling out an application form if you're not actually going to be considered because it's essential for them. Again, there's no harm in contacting them. Most adverts have a contact email address on there for a reason. If you've got any questions, you just need to ask them. So yeah, I think it's not like a steadfast answer. Again, unfortunately, it's very ambiguous as to whether job specific and industry specific answer. But yeah, hopefully that was on some level.
and as you said, it's really difficult to answer because it's really what the company's looking for. And I think just kind of over the questions we've already answered as well is getting your CV over to those clients and getting them over to the recruiters, because they might not have that position now that's available for you. Your skill set might be really good, but you don't have the qualification. So for that particular job, they might employ someone that's got their qualification, but they might have a job opening in, say, 3 weeks time. And at least if you've had that conversation with the company or the recruiter, you're going to be first to hear about it because that position's come up as well. It just really depends on whether the company have time for the training, they've got money for the qualification, and there's all those sorts of things to think about as well. So we've got 3 minutes left. I'll just double check and see if there's any more questions. There is one here. So on the spectrum of humility and overconfidence, how should candidates present themselves to recruiters, or is it recruiter preference?
I think
interesting.
It's recruiter preference, I would say, but I think I think you need to be confident. You need to be just confident, not overconfident. But I think you need to know how you're going to benefit that job role, that company, and you just need to know it in your heart. And then once you've got that, you're the perfect level, is what I would say, which again is probably not that helpful. But yeah, if you've researched the job description and if you know that you are going to be good for that company, then you'll be fine, I think. I think going in and saying that you're going to change everything, you're going to be the best person that they've ever seen, that's too much, because
it's arrogance. It's that on that line between confidence and arrogance.
But absolutely don't shy away from, there's no harm in being confident in your ability and knowing what value you hold and have, and I think you're going to be worth that salary for that company. No, definitely. And completely agree with what you said there. I think it's just know your worth, be confident in your experience, and explaining your CV to people, and that's just going to put you in a really good position. So it looks like we've got a minute left, but we filled it. We filled the half an hour. So and keep an eye out for our next session, which will be up in a couple of weeks.
And if anyone's got any more questions or anything, feel free to message us directly. More than happy to answer anything and sort of share our knowledge and advise people on what's the best for them moving forward. So please get in touch. Good luck with your job search. Cool. Lovely. Thank you. Cheers, everyone.